Hello everyone, this is Evan Abrams, and in this After Effects tutorial, I thought we would make something a little bit refreshing. And what's more refreshing than an explosion of citrus fruits? In this tutorial, we're going to work with some really interesting 360-degree image sequences. These lemons and limes, while they may look pretty three-dimensional, are just image sequences taken all the way around an object. Using this kind of 360-degree turnaround can really bring down your render times, keep you really flexible, and keeps projects nice and small. And for more complex objects, capturing photos around an object is a lot easier than recreating it in 3D. So in this video, we're going to explore some techniques and options that you can do using these 360-degree turnaround images, and I hope that it opens up some refreshing creative ideas for you. And all of the images you see us working with here in this tutorial are brought to us by this week's sponsor. This week it's Yellow Images. Yellow Images is the #1 marketplace for high quality premium mockups, creative fonts, Images 360. Now, they're most known for mockup templates. So if you're doing brand identity or product work, you can really quickly and professionally show clients how your design translates to packaging or apparel or other contexts. Having these as part of a presentation takes a lot of the guesswork off the client side and drastically increases their understanding, so you can get approval on projects much quicker. When I first started talking to them, I was originally drawn to their Images 360 product, first because photographic turnarounds like these are pretty rare in the stock asset space, but secondly because they're really useful in cases as you're going to see in this tutorial. Anyway, the good people at Yellow Images are hooking us up with a 30% discount for anything you might want on their site. The first 100 people to use the coupon code will get 30% off when you use the link in the description and pick up some excellent assets from Yellow Images. So we're going to have a look at sort of 3 applications of these Images 360. We've got our hero elements, our hero lemon and limes that are kind of floating and twirling through space. And then we're going to deal with these little sprites back here. And then finally, we're going to talk about making a grid like this. So let's get into it. The first thing we need to do is import these image sequences. We're going to go import file, and we just want to pull open all of the images we want to bring in. So I'm going to select one of those, let After Effects know it's a PNG sequence, and hit open. And that's going to bring it in here. But the first critical step is to take this thing, and we're going to go to interpret footage main, and we are going to reinterpret this as having a lower frame rate. 30 is not where we want to be. At most, we're going to be working in 12 frames per second for our work today. But I'm going to duplicate this footage element. I'm going to go interpret footage main, and I'm going to get one that is only 1 frame per second as well. So now I've got, what is this? Lemon 1 FPS, and maybe we call this one lemon 12 FPS. So to make our hero lemon, we're going to start by taking lemon 1 FPS, drag it onto a new composition. Let's call this the hero lemon, because we might want to do things in here. I don't know. But what's critical is that we have sort of 16 frames here. We've got frame 0 to frame 15 for a total of 16 frames of this lemon spinning around. Okay. Now, I've got a comp here that's called hero example. This comp is coming in at 12 frames per second. We just drag the hero lemon out onto our composition. We can scale it, position it, rotate it, right? So we've got, you know, all of the typical things that you do to a layer. But if we want it to rotate in that other axis, we want it to spin around that 360 degrees that this footage is known for, then we need to do something with the layer's time. So go layer, time, enable time remapping, and that gives us access to what time we're looking at. Here at time 0, the time remap is at 0, right? But if I were to type in something like 10, now we're looking at 10 seconds, and this is a different image, or maybe 5 or whatever. So what I want to do is to link this time remapping property to some kind of angle control. So you can go to your effects and presets, grab an angle control, drop that down on the layer, because I want to basically say, hey, show me the 90-degree slice of this lemon, right? Rotate this to 90 degrees along that internal axis that we're talking about. So I need to link this angle control to the time remap. So we're going to put an expression on the time remap, and the expression that I want to do is going to look like this. I'll just bring this up so we can see it a little bit better. We can talk through what we're seeing here. I've got a variable named A that is just looking at that angle control, right? And that's all variable A is. So you can just type variable A equals, and then pick whip up to that, and then semicolon to end the line. And then I've got variable N, which equals linear. and then linear. And then in these parentheses, we're remapping variable A. We're reinterpreting it as it goes from 0 to 360. These are our inputs. So the minimum input is 0, the maximum input is 360, and then we're remapping that to 0, 16, right? So as this angle changes to, say, 90 degrees, oh, yep, that's the 90-degree angle of the lemon. How about, I don't know, how about 180? Oh, yeah, look at that. That's the 180-degree angle of the lemon. Well, what if we go beyond 360? So let's go to 360 up. Oh, we've done an oopsie. Okay, well, what if we just keep going? What if we go to 1 revolution and 20 degrees? Oh, look at that. There's nothing there for us to enjoy. Well, why is that? Let's take a little trip to Tangent Town here real quick. And I'm going to make a text layer. And I'm just going to have this text layer display what the angle controls data is. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and go to the source text, and I'm just going to pick whip from the source text to the angle control so you can see this value. The number here is actually 380. It's expressed in the angle control as 1 revolution plus 20 degrees. So 360 plus 20 is 380. That's not very useful for our needs. If we wanted this to loop around, we need this to never get higher than 360. We need 360 to fall back to 0. So we can pull a little bit of JavaScript in here to make that happen. I'm going to go %360. Now, in JavaScript, this is the remainder operation. What's happening is that we are dividing this by 360, but only keeping the remainder. So what does that mean? Well, when I click off here, you're going to see that the lemon is back. And if we were to apply this to the text layer situation, you're going to see that we're back to 20 degrees, right? So as the angle control keeps going up, we're only keeping the remainder after we've divided by 360. That's maybe the easiest way to think about it. And that gives us this kind of looping control that we can now animate the angle here to go from 0 to, I don't know, it could go up to like, I don't know, 3 and 45 revolutions, right? This thing could be just going absolutely crazy. Woo, that lemon's going nuts. So now we have all of the fine control we wanted over our hero lemon. Finally. Wait, if I'm forcibly controlling a hero, does that make me a villain? These are questions perhaps beyond motion design, but now we can start keyframing this thing around. So I'm going to set keyframes on position, scale, rotation, and angle here. And let's see. Let's have this start over here. Let's have it start small, and then it's just going to drift into frame, right? And maybe we'll rotate it a little bit. So then it'll come in over here. It's going to scale up bigger like this, maybe around here. And then let's have it rotate like that. And yeah, when we've already got those keyframes on the angle here, so it's going wacky as it's coming in. So we are going to take these keyframes, we're going to ease those by hitting F9. I'm going to go into the graph editor here, and we're going to manipulate these a little bit. So I like to grab the handles and push them like this so that we have a lot of influence on this. And we are looking at a speed graph specifically. But even though we're at 12 frames a second, I don't really like the way this tumbling is happening. You really have to massage those tumbles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to grab the speed here, and I'm going to get it off the floor. And specifically, I'm going to get it off the floor so that it's up around maybe 250 or something like that. So it never really falls off too much. And then I'm going to put an expression on here. And the expression I'm going to put here is loop out. And then inside these parentheses, I'm going to say continue. Now that means it's going to continue with the velocity of the last thing it did. So what I need to do now is maybe massage this a little bit higher. So now it is just constantly tumbling in space. Now we can take this loop out continue and apply it to other things like the position, like the rotation. This will give us that kind of drifting that we want, just so long as your graph doesn't hit the floor. All right. So if you want the rotation to continue, then what you need to do is make sure that it doesn't hit the floor. This can't be down at 0. And then position, same thing. Let's get that off the floor. So it keeps on drifting. Even as it comes in, we get this nice subtle drift as this thing enters and hangs out and is like floating in space. So that's how we did the hero lemons. But now let's get into another way to make use of them. Let's take these and make them into sprites. So sprites are little particles. So if we're going to make particles, I'm going to make a solid, and I'm going to use particular, one of my favorite particle systems, but you can use sprites in a lot of particle systems. So use the one that you like best. And we're going to go in here. I'm going to go particle, change it from a sphere to a sprite. And now we need to give it a layer that it can use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lemon, 12 frames per second, and I'm going to take that, put it into a new composition. This comp, I'm going to call this the sprites. And this sprites comp is quite big, 3,500, too big. So we're going to go into the composition settings, make it smaller, 350 by 350, sure. Shrink down that lemon. We want to deal with fewer pixels here with this lemon. Maybe we'll rotate it like this, just so it kind of fits, taking up a lot of space in there. And in this sprite, the way we want to use it is not to have it animated. We don't care that it's animated. I mean, it's great, but that's not what we want. Each sprite I want to be a separate one of these frames, meaning each of the particles is going to be a different angle, a different slice of the lemon, basically. It just adds a lot more variety when we start using sprites in this way. So let's go back to our hero example here, I guess, and we are going to take our sprites comp, bring it in here. We don't need to look at it. You can poke its eye out. Don't worry about it. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say texture. What texture should particular look at? Well, it should look at the sprites. Okay. And now it's going to think about what I've done here, and you're probably going to have to put the size up. This is a pretty normal thing that you need to do. On the emitter, I'm going to bring the number of particles. Let's see, I'm just going to change it to explode. I'm going to increase the velocity to like a lot, so they're just really exploding. Kaboom. Let's see, what else about them? So they're going to have to really explode. But then I'm going to tamp them down using the physics. So we're going to go into the air physics. We're going to increase the air resistance till we get a control on them. There we go. So they're going to explode and then kind of hang out. Too much air resistance, I think. Let's bring that down to 5. That's great. And then we'll have to, of course, massage back on the emitter and bring that velocity down. So this is fine. And have a look at what the lemons are doing, right? They're just kind of twirling in space. And that's because here on the particle, we've chosen that sprite, but they are looping. So instead, we're going to go random still frame, which means that each of these sprites is sampling a random frame of this comp, but it's not looping it through, right? So they're just kind of exploding out. But we get this great variety of the different angles of the lemon. It's adding a lot more interest to this particle system when we're able to have varied sprites, though they're all the same object, having a different angle on them. Looks like they might be kind of a 3D object, you know? And this is a lot lighter on your system than having actual 3D models with lighting and texture and little pores on these lemons. All of that can really bog you down. So this is a great way to have a very efficient particle system that still looks really good, really varied. Now, if you want both lemons and limes, then you just need to have lemons and limes in the sprites. Anything that's a frame in here is going to be a particle that will be generated. It's going to get into the mix. But that is how we did the sprites out here, the sprites of these lemons. Let's talk about this grid. What is happening with this grid of things? When we strip it all away, this is the grid. We're making use of the CC Reptile, one of my favorite effects, if only for its name. And the thing we are repeating, the thing we're actually repeating, is a comp that looks like this. So this comp just has a lemon and a lime in it, 12 frames per second comps. The lemon is just hanging out over here, and the lime hanging out over here. We've spaced them so that they're even in this little rectangular unit, this little brick. And then I duplicated the lime, I offset it so that the front meets the back, and then we can move them around just so that they're not rotating at like exactly the same time. You know, to get the kind of variety I wanted, we need to mix it up in here. We need these to be a little bit varied, a little bit fun. So then back here with this grid, what produces the grid is this reptile effect, okay? So I'm gonna reset it back to its default. When you apply it to something, nothing's going on, right? As you expand to the right, it starts making more. And then you could expand to the left, jump to the top, jump to the bottom. And so now you're repeating all of this tile. So that's what the reptile is great at. The other thing that I really love about it is that you can repeat it, sure, but you can do things like give me brick mode. It's mixing up the pattern out here. Or maybe you want a checkerboard flip, or maybe you want a rosette, right? Or maybe you want just random. This is crazy. This is random. There's a lot of things you can do and you can play around with the reptile. I prefer brick because this is the kind of pattern I was interested in. It's also really nice because, as you can see, we've made this layer 3D. We can rotate it. We can have fun with it. We can do crazy things. It doesn't mess up the pattern. See, oh, look at this fun stuff that Reptile is doing. That's how we made this grid here. Hopefully that makes sense. And then, of course, you combine it all together and you end up with something like this. And hopefully that's very satisfying and interesting to observe. One last thing before we go. These splashes here, these watery splashes, those are also a 360 image. They're just not animated, at least not animated using the time remap method. What I did was I stuck little puppet pins on them to stretch and warp this wave as it's coming out. That does a great job of adding a little bit extra movement as these things go. You can just use the time remap to select a different slice, and they're all just slightly different angles of the same splash. So that's a great way to add variety into the mix here. So hopefully this adds some variety to the techniques you're going to use. Well, that about does it for me. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me here on the EC Abrams channel. If you want to get your hands on some 360-degree images like we use in this tutorial, head on over to Yellow Images. Make use of the coupon code in the link in the description to enjoy 30% off when you do that. If you end up making cool stuff with this, and I'm sure you will, I would love to see it. Tweet it at me, tag me on Instagram. I'm at EC Abrams on those places. I love to see what you make. And if you like what we're doing here, you like to learn about this stuff, After Effects, motion design, visual effects, then subscribe to this channel. Make sure you turn on notifications. We get new tutorials up all the time, as well as live streams and longer series. So make sure you're subscribed and you got notifications on so you don't miss any of those. So thanks again for watching. I'm Evan Abrams. Have a great day, and I'll see you around the internet.